Welcome to the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast. I'm Jay Cleveland Payne. When this timer hits 9 minutes and 55 seconds in this recording, you'll have a fully developed life lesson that you can take with you and begin immediately implementing. The podcast falls under the umbrella of my greater personal development efforts, all under the Your Better You brand. For information on accountability coaching or to gain access to tools, tricks, or life hacks, visit yourbetteryou.info. Thank you for joining me on the journey today. Now, here is this week's life lesson. Do you remember high school dances? Some of us are a bit long in the tooth to really know how the details went fully for your high school dance. It's been quite a while since you've had a high school function that you were a part of as a student. But high school dances were an interesting part of the socialization of, at least for myself, children and just people in general. Learning how to act, interact, and deal with the stresses of putting on a minor production, although because that's basically what it was, a minor production. There was dealing with your superiors, your supervisors, your sponsors. Those were the teachers and the principals and the chaperones making things work out. There's dealing with coworkers. Those are the other kids you're working with. And there's scheduling. There's getting things done. There's getting in. There's getting out. There's making sure everything works out on time and making sure the people leave with a smile on their face. But one thing there was always a shortage of were volunteers. Always a shortage of people working on stuff. And that's because it's the nature of work. Work, by definition, is effort. And effort, by most occasions, is kind of hard. You can choose not to give effort as opposed to give effort. It's kind of you weigh it off back and forth. Most people would think it'd be a no-brainer to not put in any effort. It's not exactly the case, but it's usually a no-brainer to put in less effort as little effort as possible. So if you can just pay your $5 to go to the dance, show up, have a little fun, then go home when it's over, that's all great. But someone's got to put the dance together. Someone's got to put up decorations. Someone's got to man the punch bowl. And unfortunately, someone's got to tear down the set when it's over. And that comes to mind. With that comes to mind a saying that I remember from high school when someone asked about having the opportunity to join one of the committees to work on the dances. They thought for some reason they wanted to have more input. And she said, sure, you can always ask to have a part of input. And the most common thing she would say was, there's always room for someone to join the cleanup committee. While no one necessarily wanted to join a cleanup committee, and not everyone was just recruited to clean up, the statement rings extremely true because it's all a part of people and improvement. Improvement means going through steps. There's a building, there's a maintaining, and there's a putting away, tearing down. As long as people want to work on improving, they think it's all about doing better, doing bigger, being a grander person on the stage. But in actuality, there are many layers to the setup. And let's use a setup example for this as well. Let's use a speaking event because that's where a lot of people believe they get their motivation from, having some big, magnanimous, some amazing speaker come out there and yell and scream at them, and they start yelling and screaming back at them, and they go off to have a great time. That event takes a lot of effort. You paid your ticket, so you paid your way to help fund the effort. Yes, you did. But with that ticket price, with that admission, you're paying someone to show up before the show begins and set the show up. Because these things, while oftentimes look very glamorous from the videos you see and the clips you got going on, if you take a step back or actually come to an event, you see it's usually in a hotel ballroom, or maybe it's in a small outdoor venue. Maybe it's big enough for a stadium, but the stadium, when there's nothing going on, it's just a barren floor. Someone has to show up and set up the event. Someone has to show up and hang the decorations and bring in the snacks for the high school dance. Someone's got to be there early to make sure the tables are set and the placemats are out. The snacks line up for the high schoolers. The coffee's out there for the adults. All those things. The lights are set up. The pyro is set. The music is set. The DJ is on time. Everything is ready to go. And then someone has to maintain the actual venue. Someone has to keep things going. Someone has to refill the punch bowl and make sure nobody's spiking it, and refill the snacks, and someone has to chaperone to make sure that all the kids they're required 6 inches apart from each other, and that no one goes crazy or does anything weird or falls off of anything inside of the dance. The big time speaker has his microphone working, and the sound guy's going, and the pyro goes off the right time, and the slides are great, and the lights are good, and the beach balls go bouncing at the right time. So it's very important to have someone arrive early to take care of all the setup things that must be done. It's very important to have someone there to maintain the event, but it's extremely important to have someone at the end to clean up. The high school gym or cafeteria must be back to tip-top shape for whatever activities are going to happen the next day, so you've got to clean it up. You've got to tear down the decorations, which took a lot of time and effort to put up, but they've got to be broken up and thrown away. Tables and chairs must be put back. The punch bowl must be returned to Mrs. McAllister's home ec class. Everything must be returned back to a state of normal, state of clean, state of emptiness, if you will, for the most part, so it can be used for whatever it's supposed to be used for, and that could be anything. That hotel ballroom needs to be cleared out because maybe there's an actual ball coming up, or maybe there's something else going on. Chances are it's not the room you own, it's the room you are renting, so you've got to get it back so they can rent it out to someone else. It's pretty simple, pretty standard. And someone's got to do all that work. In many cases, the work of all three is the same work for the same crew. Someone sets it up, someone maintains the job, and someone tears it down, or some semblance of mix with that. So that's not so much the hard part, but it's the remembering that there's always room for someone to be a part of the venue, part of the program, and there's always room for someone to help tear down. Last night, because of a snafu, I got a call from a friend who works with a production company, a real live stage management production company, who ended up being short at the last moment of his crew. And they were able to get there and manage to get things put together. They were able to make their way through the actual show, but it was a very late show with a very long teardown, very complicated show. They needed some extra hands. I showed up. Literally, as I said, extra hands with not very much expertise, and because I'm able to follow direction and lift, intermediate sized boxes, I was able to help. But it was a simple go because, as I said, there's always room for helping out the process. Always room, especially towards the end, on tearing things down. I'm not sure how much actual help I was, or because I had to be directed to a lot of stuff, but I do know that because I was there, things moved a little bit faster. Even though I had to be taught how to initially do a lot of things, once I figured it out, I was able to do enough other stuff so that other people can do enough other stuff, and eventually things got pulled together. And it was amazing watching him direct his crew and what was going on, and watch the crew guys who were a little hesitant to figure out why I was there show me how to get stuff done and just work together. Didn't really matter how well I knew the actual theme of what was going on. I had a set of hands. I was using it. They were all right with that. We got stuff done. So next time you have a person who's in the middle of going through something, middle of building something, working towards something, think about what you're actually helping to contribute to his ordeal. Are you just buying a ticket and showing up? That's great. Are you mooching off of him and just trying to sneak in? That's not great. Are you helping him build himself up? Are you helping him maintain what he's got going on? Are you available to help him tear down and clean up the venue? This is something that you should use in focusing on people helping you and you helping people as well. Because if you help enough people out there, you'll find your path in life is a lot easier to go through. And if enough people are offering up help for you, you will also find that that project that you're working for is probably much more viable than your haters are going to claim. And while having supporters is great, and having people pay for tickets to see you in the venue is great, what's really great is someone more than willing to give up whatever free time they have to help you tear down, not build up, not maintain, tear down the venue and clean up afterwards. There's always room for someone in a cleanup committee. So who is willing to join your cleanup committee, and whose committees are you willing to give your time up for as well? Thank you for listening for this week's podcast. The 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast is an extension of the Your Better You brand, where we have 2 podcasts and also weekly articles and ways for me and my team to reach out to you and help you work through the things to make you better or make your better you. I always mess up that's frequency, but that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to do things to help you get better in improvement, whether it's for personal reasons, whether it's for professional reasons. We are there to help you out. Check out the website yourbetteryou.info and look for the links for coaching. It could be as simple as a quick call, an accountability coach, a full session of me checking in on you, or a group coaching cohort where people are holding each other accountable to what their actions are. And there's free information and free things there as well you can use to get yourself going. And the podcast, this one, the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast, which now that we've shortened up the intro is now 9.5 minutes of content. There you go. And the even quicker Steps to Your Better You, which is 90 seconds of content. There you go. 9 minutes and 30 seconds and then 90 seconds. A minute 30. I don't know where they came from exactly, but that's what they've merged into. Check those out by going to the website, yourbetteryou.info, and look for them wherever your favorite wherever your podcast, your favorite podcatchers is. We're probably there already. Share it with other like-minded people so we have more great people joining in the community, helping us to all get better in the process. And, of course, as I said, subscribe and so you don't miss out on an episode every single week. Thank you again for being here. This podcast does not exist without podcast listeners. That's what you are today, and I'm so glad that you're here, especially you're here literally working on the teardown of the podcast in the promotion stuff. That means a lot to me. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week with another great edition. We're going to call it right now. It's going to be great. An edition of the 10-Minute Life Lesson Podcast from yourbetteryou.info.